Hey, and welcome on into Party Pregame. We're live and we're excited to have you here with us on this Saturday morning, our second to last Saturday of Party Pregame for this 2022 regular season. It's crazy. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. It's coming up this Thursday. Iron Bowl Saturday is next Saturday. So it's crazy to think that we've been doing this this is now week 12 of the college football season. We didn't do one the bye week, so this is our 11th Party pregame of the season, and we only have one more, so that's pretty crazy on this chilly Saturday in Auburn, Alabama. You saw the intro from the Texas A&M game last Saturday in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Of course, Auburn will play this Saturday in Jordan-Hare Stadium against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers at 3 o'clock Central Time, before traveling to Tuscaloosa next week for the Iron Bowl, which I, against my better judgment, will be attending. So, with my friends. So that'll be hopefully fun. But anyways, welcome into Party Pregame. We're excited you joined us this Saturday morning. It's about to be the next 2 weeks for Auburn Athletics specifically and the Patrick Party are about to be huge. There's so much. First off, we have the final 2 games of this regular season. Auburn basketball is playing in Cancun this week after coming off a win last night against Texas Southern. And then, you know what? We are officially, my friends, we've been on head coaching watch ever since the move was made a couple weeks ago. But we are officially on head coaching watch because it could happen this week, this coming week. In a week, we could know who the next head coach of Auburn, the 28th head coach of the Auburn football program is. So that's crazy. That's exciting. So big things coming up. Lots of news coming your way. We're excited you joined us here this Saturday morning, though, to talk about this Saturday's matchup against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, but then, of course, all the games around the SEC. So we're going to start off with our favorite news segment that we came up with about halfway through the year. Pat on the back. Get it? Pat, like my name. We used to have Bingham's Booms, I guess now 2 coaches ago. And, yeah, now we got Pat on the back, which I like more. First off, the coaching watch. We are officially on head coach watch. It can be happening. We are in the week where, all of that drama is about to go down. A decision will be made that will greatly impact the future of Auburn athletics forever, which is, good or bad, like Carson. So that's a lot of fun. So coaching watch, first pat on the back. It's fun. It's exciting to see the new and to see what's going to happen. Next up, Auburn being Auburn. Last Saturday, I've said it. It was an incredible atmosphere, an incredible display of, as John Cohen said, it was always a negative phrase. Oh, it's Auburn being Auburn. Just Auburn being Auburn. Always known as this, excuse me, this, negative, oh, that's a bad thing. And John Cohen was like, no, Auburn being Auburn is, Auburn having athletes like Bo Jackson, Charles Barkley, and Suni Lee, and Ruthie Bolton, and the Big Hurt, and, having these athletes that transcend their sport. Auburn being Auburn is these Hall of Fame coaches. Auburn being Auburn is what you saw on Saturday. It's a 3-6 football team. There's really no reason people should be excited, and everyone's rallying around their guy, rallying around Cadillac Williams, and then Auburn getting the win. So Auburn being Auburn's a special thing. That's been really cool to see is, that narrative that Cohen's immediately pushed at Auburn. I've enjoyed that. So that's my pat on the back for this Saturday morning. So now we're going to start the show how we start our show every single Saturday of the college football season so far. And we got a little weird with the schedule here with our 50th anniversary of the 1972 Amazings team. We've been going down each game if you've been watching and following along. We're getting weird. We're doing the bowl game. We're doing the Gator Bowl today. And then we're going to go back in time and we're going to do Punt Bama Punt on Iron Bowl Saturday. I just thought it would be weird. We're this close to the Iron Bowl. Let's just do Punt Bama Punt on Iron Bowl Saturday, and then we can talk about all the history of the Iron Bowl. So we're going to go ahead and do the Gator Bowl, and my friends' highlights are back. As Auburn started to be good this season, there started to be more highlights. So that's pretty exciting. But let's go ahead and just get right on into it. The 1972 Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. The scoring was opened up in the second quarter by Auburn as they converted a 27-yard field goal to take a 3-0 lead. They extended their lead to 10 as they found the end zone later in the same quarter after a 1-yard touchdown run that was coming off a roughly 15-yard pass to get them to the 1-yard line. They took a 10-0 lead into halftime. They controlled the third quarter as well, scoring on a 22-yard pass to take a 17-0 lead heading into the fourth quarter. Auburn lost their shutout, though, to the Buffaloes as they hit a 33-yard field goal, but Auburn quickly responded, scoring a 16-yard touchdown. Colorado just couldn't do anything on offense that day, and Auburn ended up winning 24-3. Auburn went from 6th ranked to 5th ranked. They rose in the polls. Number 13 Colorado fell back to 16th, and Auburn finished this amazing 1972 football season, a 9-1 record, Gator Bowl champions. Really just an exciting accomplishment for Auburn. As you see the first touchdown for the Tigers and the extra point. So pretty cool, pretty exciting in my opinion. And there's your highlights. That's pretty cool, I think. So Gator Bowl 1972. Next week we'll have Punt Bama Punt. Let's go ahead and get on into it. The Saturday slate here on Patrick Party Pregame. We start with the game in Ann Arbor where the number 3 Michigan Wolverines, yep, that graphic's wrong, my bad, will take on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Illinois, what happened, Brett? What happened? I'm a little hurt. They were doing so well. I believe they're still leading their division. I actually don't know. Illinois, they were doing great. They lost to, and then they lost to, who'd they play? They lost 2 weeks ago, and then they lost again at home to I want to say they got upset by Minnesota, but don't quote me on that. The Big Ten West, they're a mess. Oh, that rhymed. West, mess, kind of. And then they lost to Purdue last week, and I can't think that they're going to win in Michigan, but we'll make that pick later. Michigan, everyone's been talking about it. Michigan and Ohio State, first time they're both undefeated since, I believe, 2006. This is setting up the behemoth game in Columbus after after the big game in Ann Arbor last year. Michigan finally stopped the streak, finally won, made it to the Big Ten championship, won the Big Ten, went to the playoff. There's a rematch. It's looking like it's going to be undefeated versus undefeated, a 2-3 game. Winner goes to the title game in Indianapolis and probably makes it to the playoff. It's going to be a humongous Ohio State-Michigan game next Saturday. But first, the Wolverines have to take on Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini. Next up, we have the SEC East champion, the Georgia Bulldogs, traveling to Kroger Field. How nostalgic. Kroger Field. Yeah. Wasn't it Commonwealth Stadium? That's so much better. I guess money's money. They take on Kentucky. Kentucky. What's that? Kentucky, they were doing so well. They were ranked. Remember, Ole Miss and Kentucky played in this, top 10 matchup. Maybe it was top 15 in Oxford, and Ole Miss barely won. There was that whole video of the Ole Miss, box of coaches, going crazy. And Kentucky's kind of fallen off. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to South Carolina. They lost to Vanderbilt last week, which was hilarious because then when Auburn beat A&M and gave them their 7th loss and took A&M out of any bowl game conversations, Vanderbilt only has 6 losses, and with their win, A&M was the first and only current team in the SEC that is could not potentially go to a bowl game. Vanderbilt is still alive. They play Florida this week, so we'll see how that goes. But huge win for Clark Lee and Vanderbilt, by the way, to get a conference win. That's improvement. So shout out to old Vanderbilt. But Kentucky, what happened? Mark Stoops, everyone was kind of like, oh, Mark Stoops, he could do the Auburn job. People were just kind of talking themselves into it a little bit. Not that he was ever a serious candidate, but we're talking early in the season, and the shine on him has come way off. A lot of people are saying he could go to Nebraska. It was just, there is not a lot of talk about Mark Stoops right now, which has been really interesting. Next, you got the number 5 Tennessee Volunteers, seeing if they can sneak on into the playoff, potentially, even though they wouldn't have even won their division or played in Atlanta. They're wearing orange helmets for the first time ever. They always wear the white helmets. They're wearing the orange helmets today against South Carolina, against Shane Beamer, who, I want to say South Carolina. They beat A&M for the first time ever, which I was like, how do you play a team that many times and never beat them? Must be like how Ole Miss feels when they play Auburn most years. Oh, did I say that? We'll talk about Ole Miss in a minute. And they get ranked 25th, and I'm like, South Carolina's not the 25th best team in the country. Like, that ain't the case. They lose to Missouri the next weekend. Hey, Auburn didn't even do that. Auburn beat Missouri. Or we'll just say Auburn had more points than Missouri at the end of the game. But, yeah, they lose to Missouri, and now they play Tennessee. It should be a fun atmosphere in Williams-Brice. It's a good atmosphere, but I think the Vols might win. I'll make that pick later. Ole Miss. You heard them on Twitter recently? Anybody heard about our friends down in Oxford? Ole Miss fans, I think they know. I think they know what's coming, and I'm not gonna say it here. But I think Ole Miss fans, I think they know. They some of the older ones, they've seen this story before, and I would just like to say for Ole Miss fans, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay, and ultimately, I think Ole Miss just has to know they're not on the same level as Auburn, and it's okay. I want it for you. I really don't want it for them, but I want it for you. And maybe one day Ole Miss can be good. But let's just throw a couple stats out there, because there have been some people on Twitter that have been annoying me this week. And you might be like, Patrick, how? Well, they've been trying to say that the Ole Miss job is better than the Auburn job, and that Ole Miss is just a better overall program than Auburn. And I'm like, based on what? Based on, are you ignoring history? Like, I'm not saying we got to live in the past, but I don't think we can base an entire state of a program off of this year. Let's just couple stats for everyone. Auburn has won many SEC championships, but let's just say, since, I don't know, the SEC championship game existed, Auburn has gone many times. Auburn has won said game. Auburn's been to Atlanta many times since 2000. Let's just do since 2000. Since I was born. How about that? Since I was born. Since I've been alive. I'm now 19, I think. Yes. Auburn's won the SEC championship in 2004. Auburn's won the SEC championship in 2010. Auburn's won in 13. Auburn went in 17. Ole Miss has never been to Atlanta, so it's a nice city. I recommend. Ole Miss has not won an SEC title. If they don't win an SEC title next year, they won't have won in 60 years. Auburn won in 2013, and they've won all the other times since 2000. We can go back and name some other years if we want. Auburn's won a title and played for another. Ole Miss has not done that since, I believe, the 60s or maybe 50s, a very different era of college football. And I have no problem with them claiming it, but, it's been a minute, right? Ole Miss, this will be, it looks like, I'm going to give them credit. They're probably going to have 10 wins this season. They had 10 wins last season. That'll be the first time since the 60s that they've had back-to-back 10-win seasons. Auburn has done it way more recently than then, even though it's not as recent as I would like. It's not the 60s. It's just the money, there's just look, our stadium's 20,000 seats bigger. I don't know. I don't really understand the logic behind all of that, but don't ignore history. That's what I would say. Don't ignore history. They're playing today against Arkansas. Sorry, that was a tangent. I just really felt called to say that. They're playing Arkansas. Arkansas, they got a lot of love this season. Sure, they beat Auburn, but they have not had a good year. And they almost beat LSU last week, but almost means nothing. They host Ole Miss. It's gonna be cold. It's at night. This should be a fun game. This should be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it. Next up, one of our final Bedlam games. I think Oklahoma State. I don't know who's being petty to who, but sounding like we won't have Oklahoma State much longer, with Oklahoma coming to the SEC. So should be a good game. Oklahoma State looking to win for the second straight year in a row. I was looking at the Winsipedia, and Oklahoma State has not won this game very many times. Really at all. And so you hate it for them. But, they might win today. It's in Norman. This could be one of the final games in Norman for Oklahoma State, which is kind of sad. This is a good rivalry. We have a couple of rivalries today. We have USC, UCLA we'll talk about in a second. This should be a fun game. Oklahoma State, they're obviously not a playoff team anymore, but they've had a really good year. They could win the Big 12, so shout out. This is a big game. The Pac-12 has two big games, one at 7, one at 9:30. Our first one, USC-UCLA. This should be a fun game in the Rose Bowl. There'll probably be more USC fans than UCLA fans there, but hey, maybe the stadium will be full or slightly full. It'll be on Fox at 7 o'clock. USC, they could sneak into the playoff if they win their conference championship. I believe they only have one loss this season. I don't know who it's to. I don't remember. UCLA, they lost to Oregon, which was their second loss. No, that was their first loss, but then they lost to somebody else, I want to say. I don't know. It's the Pac-12. I go to sleep before those games happen. I'm going to be real with everybody. But shout out to Chip Kelly for really turning that UCLA program around. This should be a good game on Fox at 7 o'clock. And then, hey, Bo Nix and Oregon, they lost to Washington last week. You hate to see it for them. But they're playing Utah. This should be a big game. Utah's won the last two against Oregon. This one's in Austin. This should be stadium. This should be a fun game in Eugene. I will probably watch it. Well, I don't know. I have to wake up early tomorrow, so I might watch the beginning of this game. But I'm in a top 15 matchup, so that's exciting. Then Auburn takes on Western Kentucky in Jordan-Hare Stadium as the Tigers try and tune up, get a win before they head to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. But hold your horses. Don't overlook this Hilltopper team. Their offense is high-flying. They throw the ball all over the field. Their defense, known for causing turnovers. Auburn's only a 5.5-point favorite. This should be a close into the fourth quarter game in Jordan-Hare Stadium. This is not going to be the cakewalk Auburn might have thought it would be when they scheduled this game years ago. And this should be a fun one. So get excited. Auburn and Western Kentucky at 3 o'clock on the SEC Network. So let's go ahead and just get on into it. Let's start off with our Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. What is a Hilltopper? I don't know, but look at that mascot on the graphic, and that's the thing you might see in Jordan-Hare Stadium today if it comes. I kind of want it to, because it's so weird that I love it. And that's all I have to say. Alrighty. Let's look at Western Kentucky really quick, everybody. So, Western Kentucky, they're coming off a win last week. They played Rice. They beat Rice. I actually know someone that goes to Rice, by the way. 45-10. And, of course, we all know Auburn's coming off the win against Texas A&M, the emotional win against Texas A&M. The programs, let's just go through this really quick. They played two other times prior to this. They played in 2003. Hey, with Cadillac. Oh, Auburn won 48-3. Oh, I should have pulled those stats. That would have been funny. And then, right before the Go Crazy play, a week before. And then 37-14, Auburn won in 2005, obviously both games in Jordan-Hare Stadium. The last time the Hilltoppers played in the SEC was in 2019, and they beat Arkansas. Remember those Chad Morris terrible Arkansas teams. They won 45-19 in Fayetteville. 3 of their 4 losses are by 7 points or less, sparked by an offense that averages 38 points per game. So let's talk about this offense really quick. So, they're led by quarterback Austin Reed, who has thrown for roughly 322 yards per game, 31 touchdowns to the air. They have 4 receivers with at least 43 receptions on the season. And I think that's something to point out here is when you're watching this game, the offenses will be so starkly different. Auburn's going to pound it if it's not windy outside. So this is what I've been saying. Sorry, we're about to just totally talk about Auburn for a second. We'll do it. The weather has been weird the last 2 weeks, right? And in Starkville, it was that weird misty rain, and then and so you couldn't really throw the ball on Auburn. It was like the weird stuff of who's even like looking at the playbook, and we don't even know. And so they just ran the ball a lot. Last week, the wind was really weird, so they ran the ball a lot. If the weather can stay calm and the wind can stay down, I do think Auburn tries to throw the ball more than they have been just to keep the defense honest, because there are points in that game where I'm like, we're not going to throw the football. We might do a toss out or a screen, but we're not like throwing the football down the field. And against a defense, like that's just, you got to keep them honest, right? I think Auburn's going to throw the ball a little bit more in this game. Not to say Auburn's going to just go crazy or anything or try and compete with Western Kentucky in passing yards. But I do think Auburn can throw the ball a little bit more, barring. The weather looks fine right now. It's just going to be cold, and I'm going to be freezing, and I'm going to have to wear a whole nother coat. But Western Kentucky, so the contrast in offenses, Auburn's going to run the ball a lot. Western Kentucky's going to throw the ball a lot. And They average 41 passes a game, and that's the stat I had on the Auburn graphic that said since the 1960 season, Auburn is 95-19-1 when an opponent attempts at least 40 passes and 45-6 in those non-conference games. They don't. So here's something. Western Kentucky doesn't really utilize their running backs as much in the passing game, though. Like Mississippi State and Mike Leach do that. They don't. They've only accounted for 29 receptions this season. They average 484 yards and 38 points per game, but have been held to 28 points or less on 4 occasions. Now, let's talk about this defense. The stat that keeps coming up has been that they have forced 30 turnovers, which is an D1 leading stat. Auburn's given up 20 turnovers on the offense, so that's going to have to give, and especially in these non-conference games, when Western Kentucky, not that they're going to be like intimidated or anything, but like you start giving them the ball and giving them opportunities that create sparks, and that could make this interesting. Western Kentucky is 44th nationally, allowing 3.76 yards per rush, 145 yards per game. Auburn, the Hilltoppers are 61st in total defense, 30th. So that's the thing, is their defense doesn't seem that great, but their scoring defense has been pretty good, and that's kind of been a problem for Auburn as well. Auburn crossed the 40, I think it was 5-yard line 8 times against Texas A&M and only got 1 touchdown. They got a field goal or 2 field goals too, but you got to score touchdowns to win football games. Can Auburn finish off these drives and not just play great the first 40 yards of the field? Can Auburn score some touchdowns? Let's go ahead and just slide on in and talk about Auburn for a second here. For the Tigers, obviously it's going to be a run-first attack behind head coach Cadillac Williams. I mean, that's just been something with this whole, offensive philosophy game plan. Like I said, I think they might throw the ball a little bit more in this one, but I mean, like, behind Wilfred, Wilfred's calling the play. Like, Auburn's going to run the ball. Auburn's going to try and out-physical Western Kentucky. And I will say this. Since the Ole Miss game, for whatever reason, Auburn has ran the ball. They've averaged, I believe, 241 yards. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the number. 241. Well, during their last 4 games, Auburn has averaged 392 total yards of offense. I believe 241 was our average of the last 4 games running the ball. Ole Miss, Auburn ran the ball great, and a lot of people are like, well, that could just be a one-off because Ole Miss's defense is terrible, and so many teams have proven that. But then they only had 180, which has actually been pretty good considering how the beginning of the season started. Oh, Nick Faldo's the guest picker on game day. Oh, I like him. Auburn only had 180 against Arkansas, but then again, Auburn ran the ball against Mississippi State, really ran the ball in that second half. And then Auburn ran the ball last week, and that was kind of the name of the game. So, I mean, it's going to come to, as we always know. I think one thing I've really liked about this new offensive philosophy since the coaching change has been those designed runs for Robbie Ashford. I think that's been really key. For whatever reason, we just didn't do that as much under Harsin. I don't really know why. But I mean, it's gonna be running the ball. I don't really know what else to say about that. But I mean, I would say this: Auburn's ran the ball and they've been successful with it. But next week I'm concerned. If I'm Alabama's defense here, and I'm like, look, we know you're gonna run it with Tank and Jarquez. It's just one of those things where if I'm a team, I'm just going to stop Auburn's run. Please throw it against me. Dare Robbie Ashford to throw it down the field, And that's just kind of where I'm at. It's like, if you could just take Auburn's running game away, the offense, it could get ugly. And that offensive line is still that offensive line. Like, it's only, that's what people said is like, Cadillac, he can change the vibes. He can get everyone excited again. He can do some great things, but just by simply changing a coach, you're not going to change all the offseason prep work, all the things that have led up to this moment, and the fact that the offensive line has underperformed, and the fact that Auburn has problems and has a turnover. That's not all just going to magically change too. That is kind of a bigger picture problem, I guess you could say. For this defense, though, for Auburn, that's been something I've really enjoyed. For whatever reason, starting the Mississippi State game, once we did the coaching change, Auburn has started rotating the players a lot more, giving them rest. And surprise, Auburn's not like crazy tired at the end of these football games and just like getting manhandled. I don't know why we didn't. Like, I get there's been a ton of injury problems, especially up front. I mean, you got Colby Wooden, who's now kind of playing that edge position because Eki Leota's that, like, there's so many players that are out, right? But Auburn's been rotating. And even, that was the thing, is like, even when Auburn had Derek Brown and all those people, like, Auburn still rotated. Like, Derek Brown didn't play every play. Like, it didn't make sense why Auburn was trying to play the best players every play. Which, like, I get you want to play your best players in the biggest moments, but they got to rest too. So Auburn's defense looked better. I mean, it was so nice watching that A&M game because, and I heard the comment made earlier this week, and it's so true. Like, how many times have we watched an Auburn game just within the last so many years, and you're just like, there's just no hope when you're on offense because you're like, you just know they're not going to do anything. That's even been the truth this year. Like, when Auburn was playing in Athens, it's like, this offense is simply not going to do anything. And that's kind of how it was watching Auburn play last week, but the reverse, right? You were able just to kind of sit there and be like, there was no worry when A&M had the ball that they were going to go score. There was none. I could sit there and I was just like, they're not going to score. The defense was great. They were getting in the backfield. I mean, that whole defensive line, Derek Hall, Colby Wooden, who had that huge strip sack, that was humongous. He called it apparently. He said that in postgame. Marcus Harris, I mean, Jason Jones, they all had huge games up on the front. Auburn has actually been better against the pass than the run this season. And now that's a lot of those running stats have come, later in games for the Tigers. But Auburn's ranked 30th nationally in pass efficiency defense, but 110th in passes defended per game. Auburn has been better against pass and run, holding 8 of its 10 opponents to under their pass efficiency average rating. Through 10 games, Auburn has held the opposition to 22% below its pass efficiency. It's going to have to be a big game in this pass-happy offense. And the thing is, in this pass-happy offense, like, Auburn's going to have to have pressure on the quarterback. Auburn's going to have pressure on Austin Reed. They're not just going to be able to let him sit back and just, cook. So, I mean, it should be an interesting game. I'm pretty excited about this one. There's a lot of, this should be objectively a good football game. One, I still expect Auburn to win. One that Auburn should win. It would be a massive disappointment if Auburn lost. But this isn't going to be some kind of cakewalk like these type of, non-conference games normally are. Western Kentucky is objectively a good team. They're going to a bowl game this year. They have 7 wins, right? But, Auburn's played teams in the past where it's just like, they play like Alabama A&M, which, no offense, but they're terrible. It's just a different level, right? So, that's kind of been our preview of this game specifically. So that's always fun. Let's go ahead and just get on to fabulous Bingham's bets. So let's just go ahead and get right on into it. I have 2 games written down, then we'll just kind of go down the rest of the schedule and see if we see anything that catches my eye. First up, number 4, TCU at Baylor. This is the big noon game on Fox at 11 a.m. from McLean Stadium. TCU is a 2.5-point favorite, an over-under of 57. I think TCU, there's been multiple times where I haven't picked them, and I'm like, this is where they're going to drop one. They've looked really good. I don't think they're going to drop one to Baylor. Baylor, keeps, almost went. Baylor's just been kind of meh this season to me. I don't know. I'm just, I'm not hype on Baylor right now. It's just vibes. TCU's a 2.5-point favorite. I think they win. They're having a great season. They might make the playoff. Next up, Virginia Tech at Liberty. I didn't realize this. Thought this was kind of interesting. They're playing at Liberty. And Liberty is a 10-point favorite. Virginia Tech in their first year under their new head coach, Penn State's former defensive coordinator, and I forget his name. But he's who left, who caused Manny Diaz to come. We talked about this, Penn State week, because I didn't realize Manny Diaz was there. Liberty, they've already beaten Arkansas. They lost last week, though. I think they'll win again. So, shout out to Liberty. I would take them. They're a 10-point favorite against Virginia Tech. And I like the Flames, even though their mascot's like a bird. It's kind of odd. Wisconsin, they're playing Nebraska in Lincoln in the lead-in game after game day. Wisconsin, they're a 10-point favorite. It's an over-under of 40. and a half. And I don't know. I haven't really. I know they were, so their job's open, but a lot of people thought that the interim was like this big interview was kind of the rest of the season, which I mean they fired their guy like week 3, so he's had quite a while to have his quote interview. But if they win today, they'll go to a bowl game. They're 5-5 right now. They'll probably win. Nebraska's had a bad season. They're both those jobs are open, so that'll be really interesting to watch. I would take Wisconsin in the points there. Duke is 7-3 this season. They're having a good year. They play at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a 7-touchdown favorite. You know what? I'll take Duke on this one on the road. Hell, they play every game as a road game, or it's either road or an empty stadium. So I'll take Duke in that one. Kansas State is only an 8-point favorite in Morgantown at West Virginia. I would take the Wildcats in that one. Let's see. Georgia's a 22.5-point favorite against Kentucky. Kentucky's offense has not been good. I would take the dogs in that one. That game's on CBS at 2:30. Miami's 5-5 this season. Man, they're forgettable. They played A&M. Excuse me. I'm like dying. So Miami and A&M played, I believe, week 2 of the season. Does everyone remember that? Man, talk about two teams. That was an ugly football game. That's two teams that sucked. And sorry, that's not nice, but it's the case. Miami's 5-5 though. They're better than A&M, even though they lost that game, which they probably shouldn't have. They play Clemson. Clemson's a 19-point favorite. I think Clemson will win at Memorial Stadium. I'm feeling the love with Clemson. Clemson, they're number 9. They only have one loss. I could see them winning out and backing their way. Here's the thought. Do you take ACC champion Clemson that has one loss, or do you take one loss? No. Not even a divisional winner in Tennessee. Who would you put in the playoff? That's a thought. Clemson's not totally out of it, even though they're ranked number 9. I just like to point that out. NC State is playing in Cardinal Stadium against Louisville. NC State's 7-3. They're 24th, ranked at 2, and then they're playing at 2:30. Louisville is 6-4. Louisville's a 4-point favorite. This could be a good game. Hell, I might take Louisville on that one. Why? I don't know. 6-4 Texas is playing 6-4 Kansas in the booth in Lawrence, and I think Texas is a 9-point favorite. I think Texas will win this game. I don't know. Texas has been weird this season. I don't get the vibes. I don't get the vibes with Texas. I don't know what to think of them. Because, there's moments where I'm like, they're really good. And then there's other moments where I'm like, you're kind of not good. Tennessee is a 22-point favorite on the road in South Carolina. I do think Tennessee wins this game, but I would take South Carolina. I just think it could be slightly close. It'll be a good atmosphere. I would take them. Ole Miss at Arkansas. This is a very interesting game. Ole Miss is a 2-point favorite, basically a pick 'em. I don't know. That's a toss-up for me. That's going to be a tough game. I don't know. I'll take the Rebels just because I'm picking them, but that's going to be a game to watch tonight. That's the SEC Saturday night game. That's right after Auburn's game against Western Kentucky. 6:30 on ABC. That's Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 7-point favorite, despite having the worst record. They're at home. Oklahoma just seems to always win these games against Oklahoma State. I did pick the Cowboys, so I'll take them on the line as well. USC, a 2-point favorite in the Rose Bowl. I think USC is going to win, so I would take them. LSU only a 15-point favorite to UAB at 8 o'clock at home. I think LSU wins comfortably in that one. Then Oregon, Utah. Utah, 2-point favorite on the road in Eugene. I'll take Oregon in this one. They've had a great season. They lost last week to Washington, but I'll take Bestie Bo Nix and the Ducks in that one. So that's it for Bingham's bets. Alrighty, well, with that pretty much wraps up Patrick Party Pregame for this Saturday morning. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, coming up, it's Thanksgiving week. So, Auburn plays today in football against Western Kentucky. Then we will probably do a podcast late Sunday night, sometime on Monday. Those vibes, right? Then Auburn will play in Cancun. We might do something special to kind of kick off our basketball season coverage. Auburn plays in Cancun on, I believe, Tuesday and Wednesday in Mexico. Then we'll have Thanksgiving Thursday. The Egg Bowl is on Thursday, for those of you that are interested, knowing when some teams' regular seasons end. And then we will officially be on head coaching watch, really starting on Thanksgiving with the turkey. I need to sign up for the turkey trot. Well, we're going to Atlanta for Thanksgiving, but, to see family. But I really want the shirt, so that would be neat. Anyways, we'll be on head coaching watch all weekend long. I'll be in Tuscaloosa for the game, so that'll be neat. Maybe Auburn will play okay. I got a special shirt or sweatshirt I'm going to wear to the game, so that's exciting. And then, we'll cover the new head coach. We'll cover the Iron Bowl, and then we'll just kind of be talking about the new coach, and then we'll be on to basketball season. Auburn will play. Auburn's got some big non-conference games coming up. They play Memphis and Atlanta. They play in Southern California against USC. They play in Washington against Washington. They play in Seattle. And then we'll kick off conference play, right? In Auburn Arena against Florida on December 28th. So a lot coming up for Auburn Athletics. The transfer portal is going to open on December 4th with our new head coach. All the things are coming. A new staff will be assembled. A lot coming up. But first, we got our games today. So we're going to have our picks from Byron's. We're back from Byron's. Our last 2 weeks will be at Byron's to close out the year. So that's exciting. Thanksgiving from Byron's. Oh, that'll be fun this week. Alrighty. That's going to be it from Patrick Party Pregame. Thanks for joining us this Saturday morning. Enjoy your college football weekend. Hey everybody, welcome into the Patrick Party. We're back at Byron, so we're going to finish off the season strong. We start with Illinois at Michigan in the Big House. Illinois has lost the last 2 weeks. They've fallen off. Could they pull up a monster upset? I don't think so. I think Michigan wins to get ready for that humongous game against Ohio State next week. Georgia, number 1 Georgia at Kentucky. Kentucky's fallen off too. They lost to Vanderbilt. I think the Dogs will win big in Lexington. Number 5 Tennessee in their new orange helmets will be traveling to Columbia. I think this could be a little bit closer than people think, but I like the Volunteers against South Carolina. Number 14 Ole Miss, coming off their loss to Alabama, will play at Arkansas, who lost to LSU last week. I think this one will be close too. I'll still go with the Ole Miss Rebels in that one. Oklahoma State, number 22. Oklahoma unranked. This will be in Norman. I think this will be a good game. I like the Cowboys for the second straight year in a row. A humongous game. Number 7 USC. Number 16 UCLA in the Rose Bowl. There'll probably be more USC fans there than UCLA fans. I'm going to go with USC in this one. I think they got a real good shot to make it to the playoff. And then number 10 Utah. Number 12 Oregon. This should be another fun game. I like the Ducks in a bounce-back win after their shocking loss at home in Eugene to Washington last week. And then Western Kentucky comes to Auburn. This is going to be a little closer than the people think. Auburn's only a 5.5-point favorite, but I like Auburn and Cadillac Williams. In this one, I think they're going to be able to run the ball in Jordan Hare Stadium. And they're going to get the win against the Hilltoppers before setting up a big Iron Bowl next Saturday. That's it from the Patrick Party here from Byron Smokehouse.